Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The world of the Young and the Restless has never seen a twist as jaw-dropping as this one, a revelation so dark, so sinister, that even longtime Genoa City residents will be left reeling. Matt Clark's shocking return under the guise of Mitch Bacall has finally reached its terrifying climax, and Sienna Bacall's discovery has turned her world upside down. The man she's been sleeping beside, trusting, and defending isn't her husband at all. He's an imposter, a murderer, who slaughtered the real Mitch and wore his face, quite literally, to live his life. The horrifying truth comes to light when Sienna rips off the skin mask of Mitch and comes face to face with the monster she once thought she knew. It all began with subtle clues, little inconsistencies that only someone close to Mitch could notice. Sienna had been brushing off her unease for weeks. Mitch's cologne smelled slightly different, his voice carried an odd cadence, and he sometimes forgot details of their past that Mitch would never get wrong. When she questioned him about their honeymoon in Greece, he got the island wrong. When she mentioned his mother's favorite perfume, he paused for too long before answering. But Sienna didn't want to believe what her gut was screaming, that something wasn't right with her husband. She'd already been through enough heartbreak in her life, and Mitch had been her steady rock, the man who helped her rebuild. But as the cracks began to spread, her denial shattered, and the nightmare began. The truth started unraveling after Nick Newman started digging into the mystery surrounding Noah's car crash. He began to suspect that the accident wasn't an accident at all, that Mitch Bacall had something to do with it. But what Nick didn't realize was that Mitch wasn't Mitch at all. It was Matt Clark, a ghost from Genoa City's darkest past, a name associated with obsession, vengeance, and unspeakable cruelty. Matt had returned from the dead once before, but this time, he'd taken things to an entirely new level. His revenge wasn't just about destruction, it was about possession. He wanted everything Mitch had, his business, his wealth, his power, and, most horrifying of all, his wife. Behind closed doors, Sienna began noticing how cold Mitch had become. The warmth and tenderness that used to define their relationship were replaced by an eerie distance. He'd often stare at her, not with love, but with calculation, as if he were studying her, memorizing her, assessing her every move. The intimacy they once shared became mechanical. And when she found blood on his cuff one night, he claimed it was from a kitchen accident, but his explanation didn't match the icy tone in his voice. Sienna tried to push away her suspicions, but the seed of doubt had been planted. It wasn't until she found the hidden compartment in their bedroom closet that the horrifying truth began to surface. Inside, Sienna discovered surgical tools, latex adhesives, fake IDs, and a small, sealed box. Her hands trembled as she opened it, revealing something she could never have imagined, a piece of synthetic flesh. Her heart stopped. The shape, the texture, it looked like part of a face. Terrified, she backed away, but curiosity and dread pulled her back. She touched it, realizing it was a prosthetic, and that realization hit her like a lightning bolt. Mitch wasn't who he said he was. Her husband was wearing someone else's face. The next evening, unable to hold back any longer, Sienna decided to confront him. She waited until he came home from work, her nerves on edge as she poured him a drink and tried to act normal. Every word out of her mouth was trembling with barely contained fear. "You've been different," she finally said, her eyes darting to his. "You're not my husband, are you?" For a brief moment, he said nothing. Then a slow, sinister smile crept across his lips, a smile that didn't belong to Mitch Bacall at all. The room fell silent except for the pounding of Sienna's heart. She could barely breathe as the man she'd been sleeping beside began to laugh, a cold, twisted laugh that echoed with the tone of Matt Clark. "What gave me away?" he taunted, his voice shifting just slightly, enough for the illusion to crack. "Was it the cologne, or was it the way I kissed you?" Sienna froze, the room spinning around her as the mask of lies began to slip, both figuratively and literally. She lunged toward him, grabbing at his face, and that's when the unthinkable happened. Her nails caught on the edge of what she thought was skin, but it peeled away, revealing something grotesque beneath. She screamed in horror as a flap of artificial flesh came loose, exposing Matt's true face underneath. The mask, the skin mask, hung grotesquely from his cheek, half his face still that of Mitch, half the monster beneath. Sienna stumbled backward, her screams echoing through the house as the truth was laid bare. Matt's eyes turned cold as he ripped the rest of the mask off himself, slamming it onto the floor. "You had to know eventually," he said, his tone dripping with menace. "But you weren't supposed to find out like this." Sienna was shaking uncontrollably. Her mind couldn't process the horror in front of her, that her husband had been murdered, his identity stolen, and that she had unknowingly been sharing her life, her bed, her secrets with a killer. She tried to run, but Matt grabbed her by the arm, his grip iron tight. "You listen to me," he hissed. "I didn't kill Mitch for nothing. I killed him because he had what I wanted, and now, so do I." His words cut through her like a blade. He pulled her close, forcing her to look into his eyes. "You should be thanking me. You never would have known real love if not for me." Sienna's tears mixed with rage and disbelief. "You're sick," she spat. "You murdered him, and for what? To play pretend? To wear his skin?" Matt smirked, unbothered. "Mitch was weak. He didn't deserve you. He didn't deserve the life he had. But I do." In that instant, Sienna knew she had to get out, no matter the cost. She mustered all her strength and slammed her knee into his stomach, breaking free from his grasp. She sprinted toward the door, but Matt caught her again, throwing her against the wall. The impact knocked the breath out of her, and she fell to the ground, dazed. Matt knelt beside her, his face half covered in smeared prosthetic glue and fake flesh. "You're not going anywhere," he growled. "You know too much now." The scene was chaos, broken glass, torn skin, blood smears on the floor. Sienna reached for the nearest thing she could find, a shard of the shattered wine glass, and slashed at him, cutting his arm. He held in pain, giving her the moment she needed to run. Barefoot and bleeding, Sienna fled into the night, terrified and sobbing, with Matt's unmasked face burned into her memory forever. Meanwhile, back at the Newman ranch, Nick was growing more suspicious by the hour. He'd learned that Mitch had falsified financial records, rerouted funds from Noah's club project, and made several shady calls to contacts with criminal backgrounds. When Nick received a photo of Mitch's car near the canyon the night of Noah's crash, he knew he had to act. He went straight to Sienna's house, unaware that she was already in mortal danger. When Nick burst in, the scene that greeted him was straight out of a nightmare. The house was wrecked, blood on the floor, and a torn piece of the mask lying nearby. He picked it up, horrified by what he saw. "Oh my God," he whispered. "What the hell happened here?" Sienna stumbled back into the house moments later, her face pale, her hands shaking. "He's not Mitch," she cried. "Nick, he's not Mitch." Before Nick could process it, a shadow moved behind him, and Matt lunged out of the darkness, striking Nick across the back of the head. The blow sent Nick crashing into the wall. Matt's voice, cold and unrecognizable, filled the room. "You should have stayed out of this, Newman." But Nick wasn't going down easily. Despite the dizziness, he managed to tackle Matt, sending them both crashing to the floor. A brutal fight erupted, fists flying, furniture breaking, years of vengeance and fury exploding in one savage brawl. Matt's face, half peeled and covered in sweat, looked monstrous under the flickering light. "You can't kill what's already dead," Matt roared, slamming Nick into the wall. But Nick retaliated, landing a punch so hard that Matt staggered backward, tripping over the coffee table. Sienna screamed as Matt fell, hitting his head on the corner of the fireplace. Silence followed, a sickening stillness that filled the room. Nick, breathing hard, looked at Matt's motionless body on the floor. The mask, the man, the lies, all of it lay exposed. Sienna collapsed beside the real Mitch's old photo on the mantel, sobbing uncontrollably. The man she loved was gone, and in his place had stood a monster who'd destroyed everything. Paramedics and police soon flooded the house. When Chance Chancellor arrived on the scene, the horror was unmistakable. This wasn't just identity theft, he said grimly. This was psychological warfare. The mask was collected as evidence, and DNA results later confirmed it beyond doubt. Matt Clark had killed Mitch Bacall weeks earlier, disposed of the body, and used a customized prosthetic disguise to take over his life. As the dust settled, Sienna remained haunted by what she saw. She couldn't erase the image of Matt's face peeling away, the sound of his laughter, or the feeling of betrayal that burned through her soul. She told Sharon that she could still hear his voice in her dreams, whispering her name. "He wore my husband's face," she said through tears. "He wore his face, and I believed him." In the aftermath, the Genoa City community was left reeling. Matt Clark's reign of terror had once again ripped through the lives of everyone he touched. Nick vowed to protect Sienna, knowing that even though Matt was presumed dead, monsters like him have a way of coming back. And as the episode faded out, the camera lingered on the morgue, where a covered body lay still on the slab. But when the attendant turned to leave, a faint sound echoed in the cold room, a heartbeat. The aftermath of Matt Clark's unmasking left an invisible stain on everyone who came close to the chaos he created. Even though the horrifying truth was finally out, that Matt had killed Mitch Bacall and stolen his identity, the shockwaves continued to ripple through Genoa City like aftershocks from an earthquake. Sienna Bacall was no longer just a victim of deceit. She was a woman haunted by the grotesque memory of peeling her husband's face away and seeing a killer beneath it. No one in town could fully comprehend the horror she'd endured, and worse, part of her still wondered if Matt might somehow be alive. The police reports were chilling in detail. Matt had planned everything down to the last second. He had studied Mitch Bacall for months before killing him, copying his speech patterns, his gait, even the way he signed his name. He'd bribed a corrupt medical examiner to fake records showing that Matt Clark had been cremated years ago, erasing his existence from all databases. With the help of an underground identity broker, he acquired advanced silicone facial prosthetics and voice modulation tech, allowing him to completely embody Mitch Bacall. He had taken over his house, his business, and most disturbingly, his marriage, manipulating Sienna into believing that her husband was still alive and well. It was more than murder, it was psychological possession. In the weeks following Matt's apparent death during his violent confrontation with Nick Newman, the Bacall mansion became a sight of nightmares. Sienna refused to stay there at night. Every corner reminded her of the deception, the mirror where Mitch kissed her goodnight, the closet where she found the surgical tools, the bed that still smelled faintly of his cologne. Sharon offered to let her stay at her place temporarily, knowing the trauma was too much to bear alone. But even in Sharon's guest room, Sienna couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the mask again, half sliding off Matt's face, revealing the monster beneath. Nick, meanwhile, couldn't shake the guilt. He felt responsible for not seeing it sooner, for not connecting the dots before Noah's accident. He'd always known Matt Clark to be dangerous, but he underestimated just how deranged his obsession with revenge could become. Nick began retracing every move Matt had made as Mitch, hoping to uncover any remaining evidence of his schemes. He learned that Matt had embezzled nearly $500,000 from Mitch's company, funneled through offshore accounts. He also discovered that Matt had been blackmailing a plastic surgeon in Los Angeles, the very man who had created the skin mask he used to impersonate Mitch. When Chance Chancellor followed the lead, he uncovered something even more disturbing. Matt had been communicating with someone else, a mysterious accomplice who went by the codename Ghostmaker. The texts between them suggested that Matt wasn't working alone in his plan to infiltrate Genoa City. The last message sent before the final showdown with Nick read, "If I don't make it out, continue the plan. She knows too much." That message sent chills down everyone's spine. Who was Ghostmaker? And what plan was still in motion? As Chance dug deeper, he realized Matt's reach extended further than anyone expected. Fake records, shadow companies, and even forged insurance claims were scattered across multiple states. It wasn't just about revenge on Nick or Sienna. Matt had been setting up something bigger, something designed to destabilize the Newman family and everyone connected to them. Meanwhile, Sienna's psychological state continued to deteriorate. She began seeing Matt's face everywhere, in reflections, in crowds, even in her dreams. Sometimes she would wake up screaming, convinced that he was standing at the foot of her bed, his mask half off, whispering her name. Sharon tried to comfort her, reminding her that Matt was gone, but deep down, even Sharon wasn't sure. The autopsy had been strangely inconclusive. The body recovered from Sienna's house was so badly damaged from the fall that visual identification was impossible. DNA testing confirmed a match to Matt Clark, but as Chance pointed out, Matt was a master manipulator. DNA evidence could be faked. It wasn't long before strange events began to unfold. The first was a package delivered to Sienna's door. No return address. Inside was a single item, a small piece of silicone that looked eerily familiar, accompanied by a note written in Mitch's handwriting, "You only peeled away one face, darling. There are more." Sienna dropped the package, her body trembling uncontrollably. She immediately called Nick and Chance, who rushed to her side. Nick's face turned pale as he read the note. "This is him," he whispered. "He's still out there." But Chance wasn't so sure. He suspected the mysterious accomplice might be continuing Matt's work, or even framing him to keep the fear alive. Days later, another unsettling discovery came to light. Security footage from the morgue revealed a figure dressed in a maintenance uniform entering the storage area where Matt's body was being kept, only for the body to disappear hours later. The attendant on duty that night was later found unconscious, claiming he'd been drugged. The implications were horrifying. Matt Clark's body was gone. By now, the people of Genoa City were living in quiet terror. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some believed Matt was alive, still wearing another stolen face. Others whispered that his accomplice had taken over his work. But one thing was certain, someone was still watching Sienna. Her phone would ring at odd hours, and when she answered, there was only breathing on the other end. Sometimes a distorted voice would whisper, "You can't hide what's under your skin." She'd find doors she was sure she locked standing open. The scent of Mitch's old cologne would linger in the air, though the bottle had been thrown away. And every night, she would wake up to the faint sound of footsteps outside her window. Nick became her constant protector, spending nights at her place to ensure she wasn't alone. Their bond grew stronger through the fear, reigniting the deep connection they once shared years ago. He reminded her that she wasn't crazy, that Matt was capable of anything. But Nick also knew one terrifying truth: monsters like Matt Clark never really die. Then came the breaking point. One night, Sienna returned home to find a single candle burning in her bedroom. On her bed lay another mask, identical to the one she'd ripped off Matt's face. Attached was a note that read, "Let's finish what we started." That same night, a power outage plunged the house into darkness. Sienna grabbed her phone to call Nick, but before she could dial, she heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind her. She turned slowly, her heart racing, and saw a shadow moving across the wall. A man's silhouette. "Mitch," she whispered. "Matt?" The shadow stepped closer, and a distorted, mechanical voice replied, "It's me."